Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter. This is a big edition of HorseCenter, everyone. Belmont Stakes. Can Justify win the Triple Crown, or are you more, will it be better to put a little money against him getting the job done in the Belmont Stakes, plus a huge card of great stakes racing? Matt and I are going to talk about it all with our betting choices. Watch HorseCenter now. Everyone, I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the terrific pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
Brian, I'm really good. We've got the Belmont Stakes coming up. People think that this is the Belmont Stakes edition of HorseCenter, but it is not. It is the Happy Birthday Brian Zipsy edition of HorseCenter. Happy birthday, my friend.
I appreciate that, Matt. I don't get too crazy with birthdays anymore, but 27 years on this earth, it's been a wild ride. All right, let's move right into the show today, Matt. Justify. The fan in me wants to see a Triple Crown winner, the fifth of my lifetime. I've been lucky enough to be in attendance for the first four. I'm going to go out there. I'll be next to you to watch possibly the fifth. But the bettor in me, Matt, the handicapper in me, wants to bet against Justify. What do you think?
We've been saying it. We've been saying it all along, I think, Brian, and I have to agree with you. I think there are still enough question marks about Justify so that it warrants that I take a shot wagering against him. But I'm with you, Brian. There's nothing more historic and exciting than seeing a Triple Crown. And if Justify wins, I will be happy to tear up my tickets. But I think is a better. And Brian, hey, you know me. I'm not afraid of betting chalk every now and then. A lot more than you. But in this case, I got to take a shot against him.
That's right, Matt. We're in agreement again. I do think this Belmont is a good betting opportunity. I am projecting Justify to be around 3 to 5 in a 10-horse field. And like you, I think there are enough questions. The biggest probably being the distance. It looks like, Matt, that Justify has bounced back from a tough Preakness really, really well. So from a physical standpoint, I think we're going to see the good Justify. But 12 furlongs at Belmont, I think that's the question mark for me. He's not worth it to me at 3 to 5. Again, I will be rooting for Justify to win, but I'll also be rooting for some tickets, maybe some big tickets to come in, because I think we have some good betting opportunities here, Matt. Like I said, Hofburg, Bill Mott's lightly raced son of Tappet, I think is going to be the second choice. I think he's got the most buzz. He had some traffic problems in Kentucky when he rallied for seventh, and he was really running if you watch that Kentucky Derby down late. So I think Hofburg's been working really well up at Saratoga since the Derby. Like some recent winners, Birdstone and Tonalist, he comes in a fresh horse, second choice, and a solid second choice, Matt, and a horse I think that certainly can win.
I agree with that, Brian. He arrived at Belmont Park on Sunday. He's been out to the track already today and looking good. And without question, Brian, he is the buzz horse. And even though I've seen a lot of projections, I agree. I think Hofburg is going to be second choice. I've also heard, Brian, that out in Vegas, where they're taking bets already, where they're always taking bets, that Blended Citizen is getting a lot of action early. Also, I think he's a horse that's going to get a lot of play in the pools.
Yeah, and I think you like him more than I do. Of course, he looked really good on dirt after running a lot on other surfaces, but he did that at Belmont in finishing with a flourish to win the Peter Pan. I don't see Blended Citizen. Now, folks, if you are trying to beat Justify like Matt and I are, again, from a betting standpoint, not a rooting standpoint, but if you're trying to beat Justify, you pretty much have good odds on everyone else. Blended Citizen, Matt, I think will be over 10 to 1. He's in a grouping that I think will be vying for third or fourth choice. The third choice, I think, will be Bravazzo, D. Wayne Lucas's runner, who ran inconsistently at Louisiana, although he did win a nice stakes down there before a disappointing Louisiana Derby. Ran a decent enough Derby and then was closing fast in the Preakness. I think both of us expect that to be his best performance in the Triple Crown, though not loving his chances in the Belmont and the mile and a half.
Although apparently he has come out of the Kentucky Derby Preakness double in really fine fettle also, and supposedly is very full of himself and training really, really well, which as a side note goes to show that between him and Justify, horses can run a little bit more often than we're used to.
Hey, who knew? Who knew after watching 40 or 50 years of racing like us, Matt, that horses could run more than once every 2 months? Funny stuff. Hey, it's also a little trainer battle there. While all eyes are on Bob Baffert. Baffert tied Lucas for the all-time record with 14 wins in the Triple Crown Series. So if somehow Bravazzo does run even better in the Preakness, gets the Belmont win, Lucas would take back the lead. I'm not going to turn anybody off of Bravazzo Blended Citizen. It wouldn't shock me if they ran big races on Saturday, but they're not two of my favorites. Tenfold now. Tenfold is another horse I think will be bet a little bit, Matt. And Tenfold is an interesting horse because he is certainly progressing. Sloppy track at Pimlico. I wasn't sure how he'd handle it. He handled it very well.
He did, and again, this is another horse that is progressing nicely. Hall of Fame trainer Steve Asmussen is very, very high on Tenfold.
Yeah, Tenfold ran a big Preakness. Of course, he was third. He was running late. Bravazzo was running just a little bit better, but with another race under his belt, the lightly raced Tenfold could be a horse certainly to watch out for. We haven't talked about the horse I think we're both most interested in betting, and that's from the Todd Pletcher barn, Vinnie Viola, Mike Rapoli owned Vino Rosso. Vino Rosso was an impressive winner of the Wood Memorial at Aqueduct. He's back home at Belmont. He's been taking his time off now between the Derby and the Belmont. Another horse, like so many, who skips the Preakness. Vino Rosso didn't have things his way on a sloppy track, a wide trip, and a mud-filled in the face trip for Vino Rosso. Finished 9th in the Derby. But this is a horse all along we thought would like the distance of the Belmont Stakes.
Right, he's got the pedigree for the distance. He wanted a 1 1/8 in the Wood Memorial. He's got Todd Pletcher as the trainer. This is his specialty, skipping the Preakness and coming to the Belmont Stakes. Todd is going for his 4th Belmont Stakes victory. And interestingly, even though in New York, Pletcher is often a big favorite with his horses, in all of those Belmont Stakes victories, his horses were not the favorite, and in 3 out of the 4, they were very nice prices. And Vino Rosso, I think, is going to be a nice price, Brian.
Absolutely, man. I can't see him being single digits in here with Justify's odds as low as they'll be, and then Hofburg and Bravazzo and Tenfold and Blended Citizen taking money. We might be talking about even close to Derby type odds in Vino Rosso, approaching 15-1. If you look at his good races, I'm thinking the Sam F. Davis especially, and early wins in his career, and then the Wood Memorial as well. You can see that this is a type of horse who really gets going late and just wants to keep going. I think that'll be a good thing. 1.5 miles at Belmont. So Vino Rosso is certainly a horse Matt and I are both going to be looking to. Pletcher has another one in here, Matt, the Louisiana Derby winner, Noble Indy. Noble Indy never really fired in the Derby. He had a wide trip, but he was in striking position and then just backed out in the Kentucky Derby. He gets another shot in here, and perhaps both him and Baffert's other horse, Restoring Hope, could be two that do a little running early. Noble Indy, who knows? Maybe he's setting the table a little bit for the other Pletcher, Vino Rosso.
Yeah, could be. And again, I think the story is similar both with Noble Indy and Restoring Hope. These are horses that have different ownerships, different combinations of ownerships, and their jockeys are going to go out and run their race. Doesn't have anything to do with being a rabbit or trying to wear down Justify, but that's their style of racing. Both of those horses are a little bit more forwardly placed, and if they're going to have a shot, I think they need to run that way.
Right, and Free Drop Billy, for Dale Romans. Dale Romans keeps trying, bless his heart. Free Drop Billy, unfortunately, just doesn't look quite up to this level, to me at least. And then you have Gronkowski. And Matt, if you remember, I think a lot of people were completely dismissing Gronkowski. And I think part of that was being overbet in the Kentucky Derby. I don't think those odds will be as fluctuating in a bad way as they would have been for the Derby. I said before the Derby, before we knew he was going to be scratched, don't throw out Gronkowski completely. And I kind of feel the same way now. Maybe he gets a little overbet because of his name connection to the New England tight end. But Gronkowski, they're trained for a distance a little bit more over there. He's switched barns from Jeremy Nocita to Chad Brown, which can't hurt. And he's been working very well, often in company with Engage for Chad Brown over here. Just have a feeling Gronkowski is a horse who could get into the exotics. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I do, Brian. All of those things that you said are absolutely true. Going to Chad Brown is going to help. I think the 1.5 mile distance is going to help. So, yeah, I think he will not be overbet like would have happened in the Derby. I'm going to include him in my Belmont Stakes exotics.
Nice. Now, Matt, of course, all eyes on Justify. We've been talking about the other horses, his 9 horses trying to stop him from becoming a Triple Crown champion. How does Justify win the race? How does Justify lose the race?
I think Justify wins the race if he can get out on the lead and settle into a nice, easy stride, carve out reasonable fractions all the way around. And when he gets into the last quarter mile, 1/8 of a mile, he can go the distance. And if that's the case, I think he's going to be hard to beat. And then on the other side of the question that you asked, Brian, how much is he going to get pushed? Is there going to be Noble India Restoring Hope right on his flank? Is he going to hear those footsteps, which will keep him up in the bridle a little bit more, using up a little more energy? And when he turns for him, like I said before, it turns out that his tank is a little bit empty. And if that's the case going 1.5 miles, some of these other horses will have more left and could go by him.
Right, Matt. I think you nailed it on the head. Up in the bridle, using too much energy early. I think that's really the key to the race. Folks, Justify is the best horse in this race. This is not the strongest field he's faced. That came in the Kentucky Derby. I always wonder if Justify is more truly of a 9 furlong horse than a 12 furlong horse. That's part of it. But I really do think what happens in the first mile of the race, like so many other horses who have fallen a little short, Real Quiet, Smarty Jones, Spectacular Bid, they were used a little bit too much, maybe ridden overconfidently. I don't know if Mike Smith does that, but I could see him win this race while not on the lead early. And I think Baffert has that in mind a little bit with possibly Restoring Hope or Noble Indy. But it really comes down to how well this horse relaxes. You kind of painted the picture of an American Pharoah trip. The only Triple Crown winner really did have it his way early in the Belmont Stakes. And then he had plenty enough to show that he was the best horse. It didn't matter how long they were going to run. I think that's how Justify wins this race. If he's relaxed for the first mile, he will be awfully tough to beat. But if there's just a little bit of pressure, whether he feels he has to go after Restoring Hope or Noble Indy too early, or they push, if he's on the lead and they push him a little bit more than he wants to, I think he will be softened up a little bit, and it will allow horses to come running down the last quarter mile. And that 1.5 miles is going to be a long race. And the Preakness, I don't know if we saw a chink in the armor where he was getting run down a little bit in the Preakness, but it showed me that he's not so far above these horses that he's not beatable. I think he is beatable. Really comes down to how fast or how hard he has to work early for me. Matt, let's talk our wagers, just our Belmont wagers here. I know you were looking at a trifecta. You're going to keep it pretty simple. I'm going to keep it pretty simple in the Belmont with some exactas. So you go first. Tell us what you're betting in the Belmont.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm looking for the Triple Crown trifecta here. I had the trifecta in the Derby, although that wasn't very profitable, and in the Preakness, where it was a much better outcome. And I'm going to take a shot here in the Belmont. As I said at the beginning of the show, folks, I'm not putting Justify on top. So real simple, I'm going to do two trifecta part wheels. I'm going to use 4 horses on top: Vino Rosso, Hofburg, Tenfold, and Blended Citizen. I'm going to put Justify in second with All, and then I'm going to put those 4 on top again with All and Justify in third. Because quite frankly, I don't see Justify running a total clunker race where he finishes up the track. I really think if he doesn't win, he's still going to get second or third. So each of those tickets is 32 combinations, and at 50 cents, that's only a $16 ticket for each of them. So if Justify wins, I'm not going to lose that much, and I can enjoy the Triple Crown history.
There you go, Matt. That's important, to enjoy the Triple Crown if you do have to tear up your tickets. Folks are thinking, I want to be more different than that, but our thinking is a lot alike. The big difference for me being that I really do only like 2 horses in here if Justify's beaten, and that's Hofburg and Vino Rosso. Vino Rosso probably will be double the odds of Hofburg, so I'd like to see Vino Rosso come through even more. But I'm with Matt, everything he said about the race. So I'm just doing 2 $20 exactas. Hofburg, $20 on top of Vino Rosso and Justify, and then Vino Rosso, $20 on top of Hofburg and Justify. So Justify runs second, and one of them passes, like we've seen in a lot of Triple Crown attempts over the years. I'll have that exacta, but even better financially for me would be my top 2 horses running 1, 2, and that $20 exacta would be a windfall. That ticket costs $80. Folks, the Belmont Stakes, good betting opportunity, good Triple Crown opportunity. What could be better? Matt and I will be there at Belmont Stakes Day on Saturday. Matt, I'm looking forward to it.
I certainly am also, Brian.
Matt, the Belmont Stakes is what everyone is talking about, the Triple Crown attempt of Justify. But I tell you what, this Belmont Stakes Day card, and even the days preceding the Belmont Stakes, just terrific racing. We have a plethora, Matt, of really nice graded stakes races at Belmont this weekend. The weather looks pretty good as we're talking now, Tuesday morning. Let's start on Friday. There's some good ones on Friday. I do want to talk about the True North a little bit, Matt, because I see a lot of speed in there. I see Imperial Hint maybe as the most talented sprinter in the race, but there's a lot of speed to beat at 6.5 furlongs. I think he's beatable. And the other horse in there who probably will be favored with Imperial Hint is Limousine Liberal. I like him a lot, but I think he's better on an off track. 6.5 furlongs at Belmont. This race is an interesting betting proposition.
It sure is. The True North has got a loaded field, fantastic field. And I agree with you, Brian. There's a lot of speed in there.
There's a lot of speed in there, which makes me want to look at Joking a little bit. But Matt, he's been away for a long time.
Yeah, he sure has.
Okay, so the horse I'm landing on here, and with some confidence, and maybe at 10-1 or so, is Whitmore. Whitmore is a horse who has won a lot of sprint stakes, a lot of sprint races, a lot at Oaklawn Park, but he can run in other places. He was third in this race last year, but it was a different kind of race. I see some fast fractions. Give me fast fractions, 6.5 furlongs. I think Whitmore has a chance. Like I said, 10-1. Good chance to pick up the pieces, Matt. I'm looking forward to betting Whitmore in the True North.
Hey, Brian, you know I'm a big fan of Whitmore, and you know, Brian, that I love nothing more than betting a closer in the sprint races, and Whitmore at those kind of odds, that's an attractive proposition.
There you go. So that's both of our play, I guess, in the True North, one of our favorite bets of the weekend. Matt, we also need to talk Friday about the New York Handicap and the Belmont Gold Cup, the Belmont Gold Cup being the marathon two-mile race. But both of them lead to interesting daily doubles, 2-day daily doubles. Let's start with the New York Handicap. which starts a daily double with the Met Mile.
Yeah, Brian, and what a field in there. We're talking about the New York, and that's 1.25 miles on the turf. It's a grade 2 in there. Chad Brown is loaded in there. He's got a couple in there in 4-Star Crook and Sister Charlie, and Holy Helena who is in really fine form right now. Was last year. Terrific horse for Jimmy Jerkins.
Yeah, it is a nice field. And I think I know who your top pick is, Matt. And I'm going to go the other way. I'm on the chalk in this one, folks. But Sister Charlie is the best female turf horse I've seen in America. She's only had one start this year. She was really good over in Europe and looked really good in her first few races as a 3-year-old last year. She had some time off. She was a monster at Keeneland here, Matt. I'm not going against Sister Charlie. I already know she likes 1.25 miles. And I think if she runs 90% her race, even though there are a lot of good fillies, I just don't see any grade 1 fillies here that are going to beat Sister Charlie near her best. So I'm playing the favorite in here, and I'm going to use her with some non-favorites in the Met Mile.
Yeah, okay, Brian, and I can't argue with Sister Charlie. It's Chad Brown, but I'm going to take the angle, and I'm going to pick the other Chad Brown in here, and that is 4-Star Crook, who was running really well. Also, just fell short of Sister Charlie in the last race. So I don't know. Maybe I get lucky, and 4-Star Crook can turn the tables in there.
Well, she didn't fall just short, Matt. Sister Charlie looked pretty good to me that day. 4-Star Crook is a super nice filly. She's consistent as the day is long. The thing about 4-Star Crook in here, though, I won't be using her in exact as even. As good as she is, as nice a consistent rallier as she is, Freud, the daughter of Freud, I think she's a little better going shorter. Don't like her as much as 1.25 miles. So even underneath, besides my doubles, even underneath in exactas or triples, I'll be looking at several others in here, and there are several others. But Sister Charlie from me. Matt, in the Met Mile, I'm excited about a couple horses that I know won't be the favorite. I might be guilty a little bit of horses that I've liked in the past and still like, but I think McCracken is a born miler, and this should be a good spot. There's enough speed for McCracken to make his run. He won't be favored by any means. I think 1 mile is a good spot, 1 mile at Belmont. He can make that quick burst, that quick turn of foot that he has on the turn, and hopefully not slow down in the stretch like he does sometimes when he gets the lead, because he'll need to run his very best to win this. But at some odds, I like McCracken. And I have to use the 3-year-old now. I think Bolt Doro is another horse like McCracken, really good, grade 1 quality, who probably just isn't 1.25 mile horse. Dropping back at 1 mile, he's getting in at 1:14. He's getting a bunch of weight from these other horses. He's been trained to run this early. He's ready for this race. And again, I think he has a nice style to run here. So I'm going to be pressing the Sister Charlie with McCracken and Bolt Doro several times in this New York Handicap Met Mile double.
Right, and as Brian was saying, we're talking about this because there are two-day daily doubles being offered. This is the first one. Let me talk about my Met Mile picks in here. I think we're switching places on this one, Brian. I'm going with the favorite in here. I'm going with Mind Your Biscuits. I think he is at the top of his form as a 5-year-old. I saw him at Belmont Park a couple of weeks ago, and he just looked absolutely fantastic. The Met Mile is the kind of race where you got questions with a lot of horses in the field. A number of horses in the field are 2-turn horses that are trying the 1-turn mile, and then you've got a lot of horses that are sprinters that are looking to stretch their distance out to 1 mile. I think Mind Your Biscuits, this is the time where he's going to click in the mile distance, and I like him in there. My second choice is McCracken. Everything you said about McCracken, I agree with. I think the race sets up for him, just like it sets up for Mind Your Biscuits. Brian, I'm sorry, as we've done before, I don't like Bolt Doro at all in the race. I think as a 3-year-old, he is way, way up against it, particularly when he recently has not shown the form to be able to handle a race like this.
Yeah, well, Matt, he's been running against Justify. So if you look at the Santa Anita Derby, I think this might be, albeit just one horse, but I think it might be a step down in class. Give me the weight. 3-year-olds historically have done really well in the Met Mile. So I do like Boldoro. Mind Your Biscuits obviously is a big threat in here. But as the favorite, I do think he's better at 7, 6.5 than he is at a mile. So I'm willing to take a shot to beat him in here. Awesome Slew is another danger. There's a bunch of dangerous horses in here, but hopefully we'll get some speed. B Jersey, Ransom the Moon. So set it up for some closers. Maybe yours, mine that Biscuits, maybe mine McCracken. But I think Bolt Doro makes a middle move as well and is dangerous. So those are the doubles. The other double being the Belmont Gold Cup. And going into the Belmont, we've already talked ad nauseum about the Belmont Stakes, Matt. So let's dig into this 2-mile race. I only have one word for this 2-mile race, and that word is all.
It is a wide open race, and I'm going to pick a horse in here. It is 2 miles. There are a few Euros going over. I think the Euros hold the advantage in here because they've been going the distance. My top pick is Call to Mind, who is owned by Her Majesty the Queen. I love everything about England and Britain, Brian, after our trips over there. So, but this is a horse who has been running along with Funny Kid, who have been running at the very best tracks in Europe, in France, and in England in the group races over there. So they come over with a little bit of class. We know they can handle the 2-mile distance. From the USA, Nessie is in there and is in really fine form also.
Yeah, I don't know, Matt. The Euros, I think you're right. The Euros do often have an advantage in a race like this, but the Euros form is a little spotty, to say the least. There's no big stars coming over for this one, and the Americans, there's several in here. You mentioned Nessie, but there's several others with really good form and good form at a distance. I looked at each horse going down the list, and I just couldn't eliminate them. I have trouble eliminating even a single horse from this race. What I'm going to be hoping for is that some odds comes through. I don't think anybody should be below 3 or 4 to 1, frankly. And real good reason to believe the horse that wins this race will be 10 to 1 or more. So I feel good about this as an all button. And then I'm going to be using Vino Rosso and Hofburg in the Belmont. If I can get a long shot to win the Gold Cup and one of them to win the Belmont, that's going to be a nice double too.
Yeah, it sure would. And you could make that bet for not a lot of money and get a big payout if obviously if Justify doesn't win. 10 horses and Vino Rosso and Hofburg or whoever you folks like. You can do $1 double, $2 double. That's not going to cost you a lot for a double that could pay $200, $300, $400 easily.
Right on that. All right, those are the 3 races we're really interested in on Friday. And then again, we just get into it. We're going to have to go a little quicker here, Matt. The Woody Stevens, I want to bring up the Woody Stevens on Saturday as a race with a bunch of speed at 7 furlongs. I'm licking my chops a little bit with the Woody Stevens.
Yeah, a lot of speed, 7 furlongs, 3-year-olds. So setting up, in my eyes, setting up for closers in there, Brian. And there's a few closers in there that I like a great deal. One of them we mentioned earlier in the show, and that's Engage for Chad Brown. Engage loves Belmont Park, 2 for 2 in his career on Big Sandy. That's a closer I really like. Then there's Kanthaka, coming from California for West Point, who's run some big 7 furlong races out there already. And then Madison's Luna, who we're going to draw a line through his last race on that sloppy track at Churchill Downs. I think he's another one that's going to be probably a little bit closer to the pace than Engage and Kanthaka. More of a stalker, but getting a good setup in there.
Right, and the setup is the key here. We expect fast fractions. I think all three of Matt's horses have the capability of winning this race. But for me, of those three, Kantaka. And Matt, I'll say this. This is a race where, I like to set kind of morning line odds, fair odds for these big races. I have a hard time deciphering how they're going to be bet in this race. But to me, Kantaka just looks like a better horse, a more classy horse than either Engage or Madison's Luna. I fear those two a little bit, but Kantaka, 7 furlongs with speed, looks like a good bet to be there. I am going to throw the one thing I'm sure about as far as odds is Dallas Stewart's horse, the Louisiana horse. Give Me a Minute will not be bet at all, and with good reason, looking at his form a little bit. But he's run against some good horses. Now he's dropping back to 7 furlongs. I don't necessarily think he's as good as Tom's Ready, who won this race for Dallas Stewart a few years ago. But if they're running 44 and the pace just collapses, Give Me a Minute at big odds, Dallas Stewart could have his second Woody Stevens winner in a matter of a few years. All right, Matt, let's get to some even bigger races. Now, we did talk a little bit about the Met Mile. I am more on the 3-year-old Bolt Doro. I like McCracken. You're going with Mind Your Biscuits a little bit more. There's several horses in here, though, that we haven't even mentioned. Awesome Slew, I think, being one of them that can win this Met Mile.
Yeah, it's a really terrific field, and horses that are trying stuff for the first time, but they're very talented. I'll have a full preview of the Met Mile up on Horse Racing Nation later today, folks.
Fantastic. Let's talk about females, Matt, because these races are good races. The Acorn, the Ogden Phipps, Grade 1 races for 3-year-old fillies and older fillies. In the Acorn, the one name that certainly pops out is the Oaks winner, certainly the leader of this division at this point, Monomoy Girl. She is dropping back to a 1-turn mile in the Acorn, though, Matt.
Yeah, I don't see that as a liability at all for Monomoy Girl with her obviously ability to get distances further than that, and her, and she's got a great turn of foot. I'm going chalky in here. I don't think that they can beat Monomoy Girl. I think she's a really, really special horse.
Yeah, she's a fantastic horse, and again, she hasn't run anything close to a poor race yet. Her 3 races this year are absolutely excellent. She's coming off a tough Kentucky Oaks where Wonder Godot threw the kitchen sink at her. She battled back, she fought tough, and she proved better that day. Now she drops back in distance, ships across country a little bit, and the dynamics of the race makes it a little interesting for me because I do see some speed in here. So I'm not sure if Monomoy Girl wants to be used too much early after that tough Oaks. I'm saying there's a chance, Matt. She certainly deserves to be the top pick in here. But I think there's a chance that fast fractions might hurt her chances to make it 4 in a row. And, Talk Vouv to me is an interesting one. But the one horse who figures to really benefit from a fast pace is the Breeders' Cup winner, and that's Caledonia Road. She might get overbet because of what she did as a 2-year-old. Her 3-year-old debut was decent enough. But if they run 45 in here, watch out for Caledonia Road to maybe pick up all the pieces.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I like Caledonia Road. I picked her in the Breeders' Cup. Like you said, Brian, stuff can happen. No horse is a lock, but I'll stick with Monomoy Girl.
All right, so let's move to the older girls, the Ogden Phipps. And that is an interesting matchup, too. You have Abel Tasman, the best 3-year-old filly in the country, the champion of last year, making her second start. A little bit disappointing out here at Kentucky in the La Troyenne, but it wasn't a bad performance, and she should move forward. She'll vie for favoritism with the streaking Fault. Fault has been streaking on the West Coast. Now she tries to get it done at Belmont Park. Mile 16th, also 1 turn in this Grade 1 Ogden Phipps.
Yeah, Brian, and I am going to go with Fault. I'm not usually the guy that goes with the West Coast horses, but in this spot, I like what I see. I am definitely going to try and beat Abel Tasman, who I assume will definitely be the favorite in there. I mean, Abel Tasman did run well at Belmont last year, but I don't know. I didn't like her race in Kentucky, and it's been a while since she's found the winner's circle. So I'm going to take a shot against her. Phil D'Amato has done good things shipping horses from California to Belmont Park.
Yeah, and I guess I think Fault will be bet a little bit more than you do because I see them being almost co-favorites here. Fault's recent form with Abel Tasman's back class. I'm going to try to beat both the favorites, not with a lot of confidence. This is a race. There are several horses in here who could win again. I think both favorites have a weakness. In fact, I like Abel Tasman a little bit better than Fault of the two favorites. This is probably a good spot, second off the layoff for her. But if both of those are 2-1, there's some other interesting fillies. And I'm going to throw out one to you, Matt. Unchained Melody is a really talented horse, and she's got some speed. There's not a lot of speed in this race. Her first race back wasn't good, certainly. But if she can get back to that form that she showed last summer, fast dirt track here, mile 16th without a lot of speed, she becomes a very interesting long shot for me in the Ogden Phipps.
Yeah, and this is shaping up to be a smallish kind of field, and that makes it a little bit more promising for a horse to get loose on the lead and do good things. That's
right. Speaking of doing good things, we have some horses in the Brooklyn that have been doing good things for years. Of course, the mile and a half, kind of the older version of the Belmont Stakes later in the day. Matt, I don't like this particularly as a betting race. I think Hard Study, Opportunity, War Story, they're all going to get bet, and I just couldn't find any of the others that I really liked. I'm looking at this. I'll have a few dollars riding on it for sure. You know me, but I'm almost looking this as a bet, as a rooting opportunity. Opportunity's been such a nice horse, and I think maybe he has a little bit of class edge, and he's won at a mile and a half before. So I'm going to go with Opportunity in the Brooklyn. But again, not one of my favorite betting races of the day.
Yeah, I agree, Brian. And it's a neat race because we were talking about earlier horses, having long careers and running a lot, and we've got that in there with Opportunity and War Story's coming back. War Story won this race last year, and Hard Study is in there for Pletcher, 5-year-old, who is, as a 5-year-old, is in the best form of his career. So kind of a neat race. We'll have to see, folks, where in the card the Brooklyn fits in. Is it in the pick fours? Is it in the pick fives? So in those kind of situations, we'll have to pick horses. And I'm going to go with Pletcher and Hard Study here. Hard Study on his home track.
Yeah, and Opportunity, of course, is Bob Baffert. So Bob Baffert looking to win both big mile and a half dirt races on the Belmont Stakes card. Matt, we talked about all the graded stakes on dirt. There's the Easy Goer, where we're both looking to see what Mask does second time back off the layoff after a bad slop race. But let's talk some turf here, because we got some grade 1 turf races. How about we start with the ladies and Just a Game? We talked about this race when we were together a few days ago, and you've talked me into hopefully a winner, although it's a tough race.
Oh, it is a tough race, and it's a mile on the turf, and those races are always tricky. But I think this race is setting up for Lull. I think there's not a lot of speed in there, and that Lull is the lone speed and has got a good shot at taking this race wire to wire, and that kind of situation on the turf courses in New York, that no rain expected during the rest of this week, so the tracks will be nice and firm, which should help Lull. So I'm going to go with Lull, taking it wire to wire.
Yeah, and I like that, Matt. When we were looking at the possibilities, I saw a little bit more speed in there than you did, but it doesn't look like that other speed is actually running. She's got to beat a lot of good fillies. I don't know if she's ever won a race as big as this. A Raven Beauty off her American debut, probably a different type of turf course, though, will be favored for Chad Brown. But I think she's beatable, and what Matt said is true. A firm mile turf course might be a different animal for a Raving Beauty. So there's several options to beat her, but I'm with Matt. He talked me into Lull. I know Lull is a classy filly. She can win sprinting, or she can win at a mile or mile 16th. And if she can get the lead and just relax just a little bit and then shoot out when they spin for home, Lull will be one of the horses to beat. After a Raving Beauty, I think a Raving Beauty takes a lot of money, so you'll have decent odds on everyone else in this field. So maybe Lull 5-6 to 1, worth a shot. I'm with Matt on that one. And the biggest turf race of the day, Matt, is the Manhattan, mile and a quarter for the older males. We have Beach Patrol coming back after a good debut performance here in Kentucky, but there's lots of horses in here as well. High Happy certainly has shown good form. Saddler's Joy is always running late. Several interesting horses. Who do you like best?
Yeah, like you said, lots of good horses in here. It is a super tough race to pick a winner because there are so many talented horses. Any of them on their best form can win this race for sure. But I'm going to go with High Happy. I think we might have a big day for trainer Todd Pletcher. Again, an older horse. He's at the best form of his career right now. And maybe, I don't know, maybe for a Todd Pletcher, we might get a little bit of value. I'm picking High Happy.
Todd Pletcher on the turf, Matt. You love it. Now, I didn't pick the Chad Brown in the Just a Game. I almost feel compelled. 2 Grade 1 turf races here to pick the Chad Brown in the other one. So I'm on Beach Patrol. I don't know. I guess he's the favorite, but I think it'll be not too low of a favorite. I just think a mile and a quarter firm turf. He's got tactical speed, as does High Happy. But I think Beach Patrol, this is his best spot. I liked what he did in his return race. I like that Brown's bringing him back pretty quickly. Beach Patrol is really impressed with late last year. And like I said, I think this is a good spot for him. So he's my top pick in the Manhattan. Matt, you looked at all these stakes, probably even more than I did already. Is there anybody else on this great Belmont Stakes Day card that you want to tell the folks, our HorseCenter fans, who to bet on the card?
Just an interesting race. I mean, the Jaipur, which is a 6 furlong sprint on the turf last year, if you remember, they set a world record in that race. They went below 106 for 6 furlongs, and that's not down the hill like at Santa Anita. That's flying on the Belmont Stakes turf. They got a good field coming in there. Stormy Liberal, who won the Breeders' Cup turf, is coming in. Going to be a fun race.
Yeah, and Stormy Liberal and Disco Partner, the horse who won this race last year, headline it. Stormy Liberal had some nice odds. I had him a little bit, but I couldn't connect in my horizontal wagers that day, unfortunately, with Stormy Liberal. But he's been around the world a little bit, so a good race there as well. Folks, that's our show, the Belmont Stakes Day card. The Belmont, of course, Justify. Can he win the Triple Crown? Maybe not if Matt and I are right. As always, I want to thank our sponsor, Derby Wars, the best contest site out there. Matt and I continue to talk a little bit about our new venture, Derby Day Racing, where we are still looking for a few more investors. This 2-year-old partnership hopefully will close pretty soon. So if you want to jump into the team, have a really good time watching horses you own with Matt and I running this year, consider Derby Day Racing. As always, I urge you to subscribe to our YouTube channel here on Horse Racing Nation. I know a lot of you have already, and I appreciate it. Matt, can I get a closing shot from you just days out from Justify's attempt at a Triple Crown?
And Brian, as Brian said earlier in the show, we'll both be there on Friday and Saturday. We'll be walking around the grounds at various points. And if you see us, please say hello. We like to meet the HorseCenter fans. And if any of you have any questions about our partnerships, please say hello to Brian and I over the weekend. And of course, I want to thank our great producer, Brett Workman.
Thank you, Brett, and do say hello to Matt and I. A lot of us will be at the Belmont Stakes. We look forward to a great day of racing, but Matt and I are actually pretty friendly guys out there, so we love to meet you and talk horses a little bit. So say hi, That's it for the show, this edition of HorseCenter. Next week, we'll be back talking about everything that went down at Belmont Park Friday and especially Saturday. We'll see you then.